I mentioned before, you teach at the Wharton Executive MBA program. Now, Wharton is a great name.
Yeah.
And I actually got my MBA from an executive MBA program. So, and I had tremendous value from that style of teaching. And you guys developed a program called the Job Search Action Group.
Right.
So I'm just interested in hearing what that exactly is specifically.
Sure. The first thing I'm going to, a slight correction. I don't teach at Wharton. Teach is a really loaded word. We built a program, and the idea of the program was that about 30% of the students that went through the Wharton Executive MBA program got in the program, very successful careers, much like you, um, got in there and went, oh, wait a minute, something here lit me up. I'm an engineer and marketing lit me up. Or, I'm in marketing and finance lit me up. I want to go do something different. And, um, the person who runs career advancement in San Francisco, a good friend of mine, Steve Hernandez, really saw this. Steve is also a recruiter. He had 10 years of executive recruiting. And what we recognized was they would get into the program, they would want to make a change, and they locked up. And they locked up because they didn't know the logistics of this, because everything in their career had been smooth sailing. Now, a big transition like this, new skills needed to be put in place. So we built the Job Search Action Group around two concepts. One is, let's show you the logistics. Let's get you really good at these logistics and turn this into a skill set development. And the second part of it is, let's do it as a group. Doing this now almost 7 years. And we have WhatsApp groups that have been active for 7 years. And we go through the logistics of it. Being recruiters, we're going to explain the logistics. Our goal is this becomes a skill set you can use the rest of your career. And we have tons and tons of success stories around making this work. It has been incredibly rewarding watching people continue the upsurge in their career, continue this trampoline effect to more and more responsibility. But the better part is watching them not be afraid, not be uncomfortable with the idea of, okay, it's time for me to make a change. And to know that I have a community behind me, it's going to back me when I do that.
So do you do annual workshops or virtually, or how is the program actually introduced?
It's a 14-week program with 7 sessions, each session about an hour and a half. And we've identified, the core pieces of a job search, everything from who do you target, how do you describe yourself, how do you create a brand statement, how do you create an effective LinkedIn profile. Probably the biggest part of it is, how do you have and build effective business relationships, not networking, effective relationships. We're really, that's foundational. But you really can't go out and talk to people until you have a comfortable way to describe yourself through a brand statement. Everybody looks at your LinkedIn profile. Let's get that updated. Get out there talking, understanding how people work, understanding what the needs of their organizations are, understanding their journey. Notice this isn't about yourself. This is really about the outside world. Then we can get you comfortable with resume, with interviewing, and we even do negotiation. I've done 700 or 800 just as a recruiter alone, and then probably a good 300 or 400 as a coach. So we've got some really interesting approaches that are not typical on how to do these various categories of your job search.
So we've identified and highlighted, your integral role of the various programs or your coaching services on helping the job
Yeah,
candidate. And you've basically taken all that knowledge and experience, and you created a book that's coming out this year called
yeah,
the Job Search Manifesto.
yep.
Um, so why, there's so many books out there, why did you feel there's a need to write this specific one? And, how does it differentiate and help those that are, looking for jobs or trying to move up in their specific industry or company?
It's Rashad, the question you just asked and the way you asked it is really helpful, because we didn't set out to write a book. We set out to build a program, and about 5 years into the program, Wharton came to us and said, this needs to be a book. And so off we went. What we realized was there's a lot of books on this, but they're either really They're not very deep. They're broad but not deep. Um, or they're very focused on a couple things. Here, just do these couple things. What concerned us was they were also not written by people who've been in the trenches. I've hired 1,000 people as a recruiting leader. Steve, hundreds and hundreds on top of that. And what we realized was no one really talked about the logistics of this from people who were in the trenches with us. And that was we saw books that were, in some cases really fluffy, and they weren't helping. So with some reluctance when we started, we said, okay, we're going to write this book. And we have grown so much in the process of writing the book. The pause you heard me say was I was thinking about it was going to be so easy. No, it wasn't easy. It was a really interesting growth process for both of us. But what we realized was we've been giving, and I think I even sent you a kind of an early version of the book. We've actually been giving that out to students for the last 2 years, and we've noticed a change. I provide, I do external, I do an abbreviated version of this at Higher Club, and I've been giving out the books. What I'm finding is having a structure, having a process, not that I want people to follow like this, and this, step by step, but you have a roadmap. We're seeing an improvement in that alone. So we just didn't see somebody that had really developed a good roadmap for this. And if you're trying to teach this as a skill set, roadmap's important. So ergo the book.
I completely agree. I frameworks, methodologies,
Yes.
process. Yeah, the reason why these are so integral because I have my own, right? I teach at business schools across the country,
Yep.
in my speaking workshops, and I'm teaching them how to think business. The students, teaching them how to talk business,
Yep.
and I have frameworks, I have blueprints, I have acronyms on how to network and or how to talk the language of business when you're networking. And what I've recognized is that a lot of people have great valuable advice, but if they don't put a methodology behind it or
Yes.
a some type of system or framework, it's very hard for the audience or anybody that you're teaching this to really grasp it and refer to it because our brain thinks it best when it's organized.
Yeah, exactly. And what we found were there were people, and I know you and I have talked about this, and you've seen this, people who will stay in unrewarding, uncomfortable, if not lousy jobs because they're too afraid to leave. That the fear of transition is worse in their head than actually staying put. And what we're saying is, here's a framework. Let's get some of the fear out of the way. And it's a proven framework. So just like your work.
Exactly. And the key word, it's a proven framework.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yep.
yeah, and that's what you need, right?